Two guys of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
It's a Scoop Tuesday here on the podcast. We bring our friend Darren Doogie Wolfson in for a little inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams. Declan we have no pilot flying the plane right now because Declan, I think the text read, I woke up at 4 a.m. with stuff coming out of both
I don't need
ends.
to hear. I don't need to hear that again. I didn't need that much information. He could have just said, I'm not feeling well. And I would have been like, okay, dude, cool. Take the day off.
I think you would have been the first to ask, like, what specifically, are we talking?
No, I don't want to know.
Is it a cold?
I don't want to know in this case. If it's a guy I cover, I might to find out how bad it might be. But with Declan, I'll just take, I'm not feeling well. And Dex is a little guy too, so he gets sick. Things happen. It'll be fine.
Are we sure we're okay?
He's
Is
a slight
the plane
guy.
off the ground? Like, can you guys hear me? Phil, I hear you. Judd, I hear
we
you
can
as
hear
well.
you. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, good
You can
work,
hear
Phil.
the live audience.
All
You
right.
can hear them
Yep.
right now.
Well, then who needs Declan?
Wow.
Sorry, Dex.
Wow. No, we miss him.
Well, someone's going to have to take all this amazing content and post it and put like clickbait headlines on social media and send it to the aggregators to get Doogie in trouble. So, somebody have to do that stuff. Let's talk Vikings here to start with, boys. We were just talking off microphone about, we can start with Flores, and then I know you have a nugget about another Vikings assistant coach, Doogie. We were all like really sure about a month and a half ago, boy, there's going to be 5 or 6 jobs open. There was actually 8 at one point. There might be 2 more from this last weekend with Eagles and Cowboys. And so there's coordinators getting requested for interviews. I think Dan Quinn has like 4 interviews lined up, all these. Brian Flores, as of right now, I don't think, unless I'm missing something under the radar, has not had an interview request for a head coaching job yet.
Yes, I mean, as far as I know, Phil, I've not heard of him being contacted. Now, he didn't do himself any favors letting go in the last 12 to 18 months. One of the power broking agents in this regard. He made an agent change. Now, I'm sure he had his reasoning for that, but I'm sure that didn't help him. I still think, pending litigation, when you are suing the league, that it might be hard for a lot of these ownership groups to even welcome him for an interview. Credential-wise, we know he is plenty worthy. I will add, Phil, I'm with you. We are wondering about Philadelphia, Dallas. What about Pittsburgh? The Rooney family, right? He was there a year ago. If Mike Tomlin is not getting fired, but he walked out of the news conference on Monday when presented a question about his future. So, I mean, we wonder, right? We are opining, what does the future of Mike Tomlin hold? We know he can be a head coach wherever he wants to be, right? There's no debate over that. Pittsburgh wants him as its head coach here in 2024. But he has a decision to make with 1 year left on his contract. Would Pittsburgh perhaps entertain a trade scenario? We wonder in this moment, could the Steelers' job open? If it does, would they consider Brian Flores? But outside of that, and by the way, I think that job would be very, very appealing to him. I'm not sure every job would be appealing to him. I think he would probably take most jobs. He certainly would take the Pittsburgh job. I feel confident saying that. I just wonder in this moment, the future of Mike Tomlin. If that Pittsburgh job opens, then perhaps we need to monitor the Flores situation. But as of now, all signs point to Brian Flores being back with the Vikings.
I guess the thing that surprises me, but it speaks volumes to what you just talked about, which is when you're suing the league, it creates huge problems, is that he's not showing up just on lists as a courtesy. Ordinarily, if you have a coordinating season and bring defense back from the dead like Brian has, you get at least onto lists, right? Like he's not on lists now. And so, and we have speculated on this going back months, sometimes recklessly, sometimes not. But when you are suing the commissioner, that's a problem. Here's a curveball, though. And I don't know that this would impact Flores' ability to get a job. But I was watching Get Up this morning, and of course, they're still very focused, not surprisingly, on the Cowboys' meltdown. And one of the things they discussed in depth was how bad Dan Quinn's game plan was for the Packers on Sunday. And that McCarthy should have vetoed it and said, dude, we got a bunch of small guys. They're going to run the ball down our throats. But he didn't. I wonder if that's going to affect the Dan Quinn market as well. Because we've talked about, well, that last month might have hurt Brian Flores, right? Well, if you gag in a playoff game like the Cowboys did. So I
Right,
am
but
surprised.
Dan Quinn doesn't have a history of gagging in playoff games.
Oh, that's
I
a
don't
good
know
point.
what you're talking
Well, no, that's
about.
true. That's true. He usually gets to the Super Bowl before he gags 28-3. But anyway, I am surprised that Flores isn't at least like showing up on lists as this guy is a potentially relevant factor in coaching searches, which he's not.
Plus, we would have heard his name by now, right? Like, these teams are announcing head coaching interviews. Heck, I mean, the Chargers put it out on Monday. We have officially interviewed Jim Harbaugh, who maybe he doesn't mind that his name is out there, right? But these teams announce these formal interviews. We've yet to see Brian Flores' name attached in any capacity. Mm-hmm. So that's why I just say, I mean, all signs point to he enjoys it here. I was told his kids really enjoy the school they go to in the West Metro. So his family likes it here. That all signs point to Brian Flores being the Vikings defensive coordinator here in 2024. I'm just saying, I do wonder a little bit about that Pittsburgh situation.
This could be a great thing for the Vikings. I mean, I know that there's probably some people listening that would rather the Vikings, do a full-on tank job next year. They are not going to try and do that organizationally. In fact, any discussion about us wanting to draft a quarterback is not coming through the prism of go draft a quarterback and then be awful next year. They're going to try and win regardless of who their quarterback is. But on defense, Flores' first year in Miami as head coach. So he comes in, all right, going to take over this kind of train wrecky organization. They were 32nd, last in the league in scoring defense his first year, and then they jumped to 6th in scoring defense in his second year. It was that second year that they made the big jump. Now, they made a big jump first year out of the gate from like bottom 5 to, I think, 15th, 13th in scoring this year. But if the Miami job was any indication when he was a head coach, you get him into a second year with players and maybe an extra weapon in that scheme. And he ran a little bit of a different scheme in Miami because, he had different personnel, probably better personnel. But this could be, if he sticks around, I don't know why this wouldn't be a great thing for the Vikings trying to win games and have a better defense next year.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think about his fingerprints being on the pre-draft process, right? I mean, it was to some extent Blackman, Roy, even Ward, certainly Pace, right? That Brian had his fingerprints on those moves. Now you have him for a full-fledged pre-draft process. Not that it wasn't full-fledged last year, but he was adjusting, right? Where his fingerprints might be even more so on the pre-draft process the next few months. So, yes, all-encompassing, everything you just laid out, Phil, yes, it is a very good thing with the Wilfs, all about going forward again here in 2024, that Brian Flores, unless something radical happens here, Brian Flores will be back.
So when Zimmer got fired, one of the things that Justin Jefferson politicked for was the retention of wide receivers coach Keenan McCardell, who's obviously done a great job with those guys. I think last year there was some scuttlebutt about McCardell actually not here, but somewhere being a candidate for an OC job. Where do things stand there? Because I would say that if we're going through the list of value on position coaches, Doogs, that Keenan McCardell would probably be the top one when it comes to position coaches on the Vikings.
And Kevin O'Connell, Judd, realizes that. Kevin O'Connell, I'm told, values Keenan big time. Like, Kevin O'Connell doesn't want to lose Keenan McCardell, but Keenan is ready in his mind, his representation's mind, to call plays. He's ready to make that step up, that he's on a path to one day, maybe in the next 5-ish years, to being a head coach. That is the ultimate goal. So the next logical step is, hey, I need to ascend to offensive coordinator. I need to call plays. So let's see, some of these defensive-minded coaches land in some spots, what direction they could potentially go. But certainly keep an eye on that there are no, interviews that have taken place to date. But let's just see some of these head coaching spots that get filled. And if there's a logical connection with Keenan, that Keenan could elevate and move on to become an offensive coordinator. But yeah, the Vikings want him back. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, go up and down the list. They value him so greatly there in Eagan.
Yeah. Can we, I'm going to blur the lines and get into some reckless speculation here.
Reckless speculation.
I wonder how, I think Kevin O'Connell's job security is rock solid. I think if obviously there's things to nitpick and there's some, you got to fix the running game. It's been 2 years, and it's one of the softest, most finesse offenses, and they're not even really. So there are things to criticize.
Absolutely, but yeah, he's not going anywhere, Phil. I mean, as long as Andrew Miller has the power he does, I think Kevin O'Connell is plenty safe. I really
Yeah.
do.
Like he's at least, they'd have to have a really bad year to even start the conversation. We'll see. But
Correct.
I wonder about Kwesi.
Or a bad stretch, right? I mean, we're talking about Nick Sirianni, right? I mean, the Eagles were, 10-1? Now we're talking about the potential of the Eagles changing coaches. So it can flip fast. But yes, in this moment, Kevin O'Connell has unreal job security. As he should, in my mind.
But I wonder about Kwesi. I just think, man, there's so many things that you could. There's more things to poke at with Kwesi than there are for Kevin. Now, if you draft a quarterback, if they make a big play for a quarterback, I think you're going to get some time. But I guess I'm wondering, what are your thoughts, just your educated thoughts? And then if you have any information, it feels like Kevin is on more solid ground than Kwesi, and Kwesi needs a really big 4-month stretch here. That's my gut right now.
I think that gut feeling is okay. I mean, it was a 4-year contract. We're entering year 3, right? We need to see tangible progress here in year 3 to even consider a contract extension. I thought he handled himself okay at the season ending, wrap-up type news conference middle of last week. It wasn't all word salad. Certainly he can tap dance, with the best of them or the worst of them. But I didn't think it was all word salad. I thought there was some information gleaned, from the words that he said. He held court afterwards, off mic for a bit, showed a bit more of his personality, was dropping some interesting vocabulary, right? So, I mean, he's a guy like you want to hang out with, right? You wouldn't mind having a cocktail with, right? But we still need to see that he's capable of doing this job. Let's not forget, if he doesn't get this job, Phil, he wasn't getting another job.
Yeah.
Was he even getting a job the next cycle or this cycle? I'm not even 100% positive he was. Maybe, but he wasn't getting another GM job. So he struck. I don't blame him, those close to him, for saying, yeah, you're offered the job. Take it, even with the stipulations. You can't maybe do some of the things, and I'm just speculating on this, but maybe some of the things you'd like to do. But, hey, get there. Like you're a general manager in your early 40s. That's an opportunity you can't turn down. I'm just saying I'm unaware of another opportunity he would have had. Like Ryan Poles, right? The other finalist who was supposed to come to town for an interview. Ryan had another opportunity. Chicago gives him the contract he was looking for, the authority he wanted. He jumped all over the Bears opportunity before, in-person interview here, right? Met with the Vikings virtually, was supposed to come here, didn't. Kwesi just didn't have those options. He might have gone through like the early process of one interview cycle, Judd. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I can't remember which one, but I just don't think he was getting another job. So I think it's safe, Phil, to just openly wonder, okay, like he needs to show us more, demonstrate he really knows how to do this job, right? And it's not just him, it's those around him. But I even question bringing in Ryan Gregson as his right-hand man. Like, look at what Ryan did in Indianapolis. Why is that your right-hand man? I mean, that to me is baffling in many ways. So, yeah, point is, he needs to demonstrate a lot to us over the next year here in 2024 to say, okay, you are the guy, Kwesi. Let's give you a contract extension.
What's intriguing about this discussion as well is the fact that in some ways O'Connell's whiff on Ed Donatel is biting Kwesi in the butt, because that 2022 draft now churned out top defensive guys who Flores clearly does not want to play, right? Like there's no way that Kwesi's like, yeah, don't play Lewis Seen. This is a great idea. Don't play Booth. Don't play Asamoah. And those are guys that somebody, my guess is Donatel and the previous administration of some also identified. Now, he takes the fall, and he should. He traded back. But the fact is that Flores' success with guys that don't include 3 of the top picks from that draft is really intriguing. And that goes back to not getting the defensive coordinator hire right off the bat and basically going through a year of, oh, guess what? These 3 guys that Ed Donatel thought would fit his scheme 100% appear to not fit Brian Flores' scheme.
Sure, although, and hey, we brought this up last week, and it actually hasn't come up a ton since that 2022 draft. But, of course, the tweeters had some fun with it, saying, hey, time to move on. But it could have been as simple as you just take the consensus best safety on the board. It really wasn't that difficult. You're sitting there. Don't move back. Just take Kyle Hamilton, right? Like, It didn't take.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're right. Yes,
a genius to make that selection. No. Just take Kyle Hamilton. Look at his body of work at Notre Dame.
It's three guys.
Whether it's Kwesi's, financial background, right, and all that. I mean, heck, I think my 12-year-old could have made that selection. I mean, truthfully, right? It wasn't that difficult that if you were considering a safety in the first round, like you did with Lewis Cine at the end of the first round, just take the consensus best safety on the board and we'd be having a different discussion.
And God, listen, I'm certainly not Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter or even Darren Doogie Wolfson when it comes to insiding. But I can tell you now, sort of 2 years after that first draft, that the decision to move back 20 spots was not a universally supported. I mean, it was a sort of an eye-opening, shocking moment for people in the organization, too. As it would be if you were to say, hey, the Vikings are going to move back 20 spots from having a fringe top 10 pick. And so, when you make a bold move like that and it doesn't pay off and it, in fact, train wrecks the way that it looks like it has, and those guys are still under contract and we'll see what happens this year, then, you stick your neck out, it doesn't work, and it's pretty glaring.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's glaring because the two of them, even if one, let's say Andrew Booth Jr. turned into not even a Pro Bowler, but just a good starter, right?
Mekhi Blackman.
Trey Waynes. Yep.
What if he was Mekhi Blackman?
Maybe a little above that, but sure. Mekhi Blackman, right? We'd be having a different discussion. But it's the totality of you're in the 30s there, those two guys in the 30s, and both, for lack of a better term, have been busts.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Judd.
Oh, I was going to say, if it pleases the reckless speculation court, I would like to introduce a thought, though, that I think could go a long way towards possibly splitting the perception. Accurate right now that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell are joined at the hip, and it's this.
Reckless speculation.
Dukes, what do you think the odds are, potentially, that one of them gets a contract extension in the coming months and one of them does not? Because if
one does, it's KOC, right?
That's my point.
They would say, okay,
that splits them at that point.
Tack on a year or two. Sure.
That goes to what Phil is saying.
That would be interesting. Sure.
Because I Kevin O'Connell, I thought, did take a step back, but that's a tough job. And I do think that he's done what they wanted. There's more about Kwesi we don't know. Like, we obviously don't see him operate on Sundays. We see O'Connell operate on Sundays. But I'm just saying that if we've had a lot of, it feels like, especially in football, coaches and GMs that come in and they come at the same time. And so it's like, okay, they're a team. And then there's, sometimes some fractures, disagreements. I'm trying to trade the first round pick. I want you to take the wide receiver. And now it becomes very clear that they're not as joined as we thought. And so I would be curious if the Wilfs would take care of O'Connell this spring or summer and maybe tell Kwesi, we're going to wait and see on you. Completely reckless speculation.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fine. But it's interesting to think about. I'm just saying, of the two, if you're awarding a contract extension because both signed 4-year deals,
right,
you'd be awarding the contract extension to KOC, not to Kwesi. Very, very interesting to think about. Yes. Mm-hmm. And hey, I mean, for what it's worth, the Vikings have a rock solid relationship with the agency that represents Kevin O'Connell. Not that they don't with the people that represent Kwesi, but it is very, very solid with the people that represent Kevin O'Connell.
We're also getting into that territory here.
Reckless speculation.
Do you GM as someone like when I say do you GM, I mean GM as a verb. Are you GMing in a way that is trying to get yourself another year on the job because it's great, it pays 7 figures and you're a freaking NFL general manager, right? Do you do what you need to do to win 9 games, 10 games, just keep it moving forward in a competitive way? Or do you GM in a way that opens things up from maybe 2025 to 2027 to compete at an even higher level at the risk of being wrong or whiffing or drafting another Christian Ponder and getting fired, right? Like, that's my biggest curiosity. And I think there's a lot of teams, general managers, because of the nature of how quickly guys, like, look at Carolina. I mean, that dude's a train wreck, David Tepper. He got there 5 years ago. He's fired 3 head coaches. He literally fired the coach and the general manager that drafted Bryce Young 9 months ago. Like 1 year, just everyone's gone. We're going to start over. And so I think human nature would dictate, if you're Kwesi, if you don't think you certainly don't have the contractual security beyond 2025, are you going to do that job and manipulate the next 4 months in a way that helps the long-term health of the franchise or the 2024 health of the franchise?
Well, couldn't you do both? I mean, first off,
Well, that's what he's been trying to do.
Ziggy and Mark are not David Tepper, right? So Tepper is on an island by himself. Maybe
Agreed.
Mark Davis is there too, but that's a different situation, right?
Agreed.
I mean, that's the mirage, not the trend. I mean, couldn't you go quarterback in the first round? And okay, so Kirk is back, so the quarterback isn't playing, but there's enough evidence to suggest that you hit on that quarterback to set up what should be success 2025 and beyond. So I'm just wondering, Phil, if you can play both sides there.
Maybe, but he's been playing both sides for 2 years, and they're pretty much in the same spot they were 2 years ago when Mike Zimmer got, like, literally all the same things you could say, which is, they're trying to get back into the playoffs. They're trying to make it work with Kirk. They're trying to work around a big $40 million Kirk salary, which is, make no mistake, what he's probably going to command.
Yeah, I mean, stuck in middle purgatory. They've been stuck in middle purgatory forever.
Yeah.
And I think the toughest part coming out of Super Wild Card Weekend is the Packers, right? So, like, the Packers have done it again. Jordan Love develops, and halfway through the season, I thought, okay, he ain't that great. Well, guess what? On Sunday, he was fantastic. And in the last half of the season, he was damn good. And so I'm sure the Wilfs look at that. The Wilfs probably look at Tampa Bay right now. Now, I still think, because that division's so bad, but still, they won a playoff game with Baker freaking Mayfield, who, by the way, on a 1-year contract is a $1.7 million cap hit. So, like, there is this very interesting... This is where the Wilfs as fans, Doogie, I think, look at teams and think, why not us? Why can't we
how much
win
dead cap money
and build?
in Tampa this year, right? Phil, do you know how much dead cap money Tampa is absorbed this year?
Let's find it.
I mean, it's tens of millions of dollars. That's the reason why they have Baker Mayfield at such a low number. They needed a quarterback at a low number. So Tampa was in salary cap hell this time last year. Right? So, I mean, could the Wilfs look at that and say, okay.
Right. Why can't we do this?
Absorb the Cousins hit that we need to, but we're moving on. Right? The dead cap money is the dead cap money. We can still compete. Look at Tampa here in 2023. They were able to compete with all this dead cap money. There still is a pathway to success, even if we need to make some tough decisions in the moment in the next, 6 to 8 weeks.
It looks like I'm looking on. So Tampa Bay's dead cap here according to Spotrac. It's just kind of interesting. Well, Tom Brady's dead cap hit is $35 million. So that's 35. And then there's a bunch, 81 million in dead cap of a 200.
I mean, I knew it was a big number, right? So, I mean, how about Tampa advancing to the second round of the playoffs? And hey, we can certainly have the conversation about how weak that division is. Would Tampa really, with that roster, compete at that level in a different division? But nonetheless, they are playing in the second round of the playoffs. Hey, by the way, though, I'm still convinced. You guys can talk me off the ledge. This is very much an opinion, but if Kirk Cousins doesn't get hurt on October 29th, I'm now convinced more than ever we'd be talking right now about the Vikings playing the weekend of January 20th.
Yeah. Man, the next few months. Hey, before we keep going here into this scoop session, let's shout out our friends over at Zero Res. So if you're looking to maybe deep clean your home, I don't know, for the first time, how many of you out there, audience, have never deep cleaned your carpets, your air ducts? All right, you're just living in filth and you don't even know it. Or maybe you do know it and you're still living in filth. That's where Zero Res comes in with a 4.9 out of 5-star rating on Google with 17,000 reviews. So you know they're credible when that many people give them a 5-star rating. You can get the Score North Special, which is 3 rooms, Zero Resified, starting at just $119 when you call Zero Res at 952-ZERO-RES or ZeroResMinnesota.com. Ask for the Score North Special. You also get $75 off when you get your air ducts cleaned. Spell it forwards or backwards, it spells the same. Zero Res. All right, Dukes, anything else Vikings-wise sort of pique your interest here before we empty out your scoop bag?
No, I mean, I'm still awaiting word if Mekhi Blackman needs some surgery on that shoulder. I've been trying to check on that, so that's something that's at least semi-interesting to me. Otherwise, no, not a whole lot Vikings-wise. Football-wise, you've got Joe Alt, who is going to be a top 10 pick, Totino Grace High School, Notre Dame left tackle, he is deciding to do his pre-combine work here in the Twin Cities. So he could have gone somewhere tropical. He's got a big-time agent from Creative Arts Agency, but he is deciding to do his pre-combine training here in town with a couple of your buddies, Phil Mackey.
You're damn right. He's getting that Alex Boone Rhino treatment this lead up. So that's gonna probably elevate him to the number 1 overall pick, I would guess. Working with our guy Rhino, I don't know how you wouldn't draft that guy. Number 1.
Hey, all I know is John Michael Schmitz fell further than he should have. The Giants' offensive line was a mess, but there was enough there. And hey, he battled some stuff. Michael Schmitz did, the former Gopher. But I'll tell you what, the New York Giants are very, very, very happy to have John Michael Schmitz as their starting center.
Yep. What else you got in your scoop bag here before we say goodbye on this Tuesday, Doogs?
Yeah, so on the Wolves, so as we approach the early February trade deadline, I had a capologist friend reach out to me, Steve. Thank you for this information, Steve. He brought up a couple good points. One being, so Mike Conley Jr. in his contract has a clause that if he plays 60% of the games, which at this point, barring some sort of catastrophic injury, Mike Conley Jr. is going to play 60% of the games. And now, hey, 3 months ago, this sounded crazy, but right now it doesn't. And if the Wolves reach the finals, it's a $1.5 million bonus.
Oh.
So when you think about the Wolves being $2.1 million under the tax threshold, that they don't want to exceed that, if you're Tim Connolly, that is something you probably need to consider entering the trade deadline. How much money can you bring back? What I'm getting at is the Wolves can do something, and I expect them to do something. But in all likelihood, it needs to be close to dollar for dollar. That you almost need to consider this $1.5 million bonus being realistic.
Especially if you make the right trade that elevates them to the finals. Yeah.
Sure. And they reach the finals. So you need to consider that. Also, if you're trading 2 for 1, so let's say you trade Shake Milton plus Wendell Moore Jr. You bring back 1 player. So you get down to 13 players on your roster. You can do that, but only for like a week or two. Like you need to get to 14 contracts. And so whoever you're signing, you need to consider that when thinking about the tax line, not wanting to exceed that tax line. So just some things to consider, but certainly the Wolves are on the lookout for bench scoring help, 3-point shooting help, whether it's a guy like Alec Burks, Luke Kennard, does San Antonio buyout Doug McDermott? Could he be a possibility? Certainly Monty Morris, although I'd like to see him play a little bit.
Yeah, me
with
too.
Detroit, but we know there are fans of Morris here. They tried to acquire him last summer. I know that there are still Tyus Jones fans here in the front office. So just some names to consider, but I still think they end up doing something, and I would put Shake Milton at the top of the list with an option, a team option for next year, so a team can get out from underneath. He's essentially an expiring contract that the Wolves can use that $5 million that Shake Milton is making in some sort of trade.
Yeah. Great nuggets there. Yeah.
But also, I guess you can consider, Phil, if it's not a trade, let's say you move Shake, you get back some draft capital, then we know the Wolves will be attacking the buyout market. I'm telling you, there will be some names. And if you're a second apron team, I don't have the full list in front of me, but there's a bunch of teams second apron. So if a guy gets bought out that is making above the mid-level exception, he cannot sign with a team that is second apron. So that eliminates a bunch of teams. Well, here, I'll give you an example. You ready for this? Here's a wild one that Steve tossed out to me. But hey, it's fun for fodder, okay?
Hold on. Let me just make sure you're protected. Okay.
Reckless speculation.
Thank you. The Warriors trade Chris Paul. They bring in youth to help out Curry. Maybe they realize, okay, we're just not making a run this year. So they move on from Chris Paul. The team that Chris Paul gets traded to buys him out. That there's no reason for that team to have Chris Paul. Chris Paul, the open market, he would be limited. Now, hey, OKC could sign him. Philadelphia could sign him. But I'm just saying, is it possible where the Wolves are, number 1 in the Western Conference since November 18th? Think about it. We approached the 2-month mark on Thursday of the Wolves being the number 1 team in the Western Conference.
2
This
months.
is now a run of sustained success. Could we actually talk about the Wolves being a potential destination on the buyout market?
Dude.
So it's not necessarily a trade. It could be a trade, just creating an opening, creating some salary cap flexibility to not exceed the tax threshold. But it could be with the Wolves having their vision on the buyout market. So just something to keep in mind the next
Oh,
3
this is great. Penthouse
this
at the
was-
Lowe's. Just walk through the Skyway. You never have to go outside.
Whatever
By
he
the
wants,
way,
man.
I want to open for the first time in years a new restaurant in Target Center called the Second Apron.
There you go. Yeah.
I think that's a great name for a restaurant. That's
And
going to be
all the
my
funds
restaurant.
go to help pay for that luxury tax.
Yes,
payment,
exactly
okay?
right. We that's how we do this. That's how we pay
roll
all these
now.
when they choose a baseball coach. So there you go. Hey, Dukes, what's up with Payne? Like how his usage I don't understand.
Well, I mean, to me, Dawson is best at the 4, not the 5. So I want Payne and Garcia on the floor together more.
Okay.
We saw Payne really good, what was that, 9, 10, 11 days ago in Ann Arbor against Michigan. He was really good. I still think he's battling some stuff, including just getting his conditioning all the way to where it could be. But that was a bit odd yesterday, his limited action against Iowa. That was definitely interesting. I think Payne needs to start. You put Payne at the 5, Garcia at the 4, because I fully believe that Dawson Garcia is at his best when he's playing the 4, not the 5. You can still start Ola Joseph, bring Cam Christie off the bench. I still think Christie should play good minutes, but I get it as a freshman. There's still an adjustment period. So your starting lineup to me should be Hawkins, Mitchell, Ola Joseph, Garcia, Payne. But very fair question you ask.
There he is, Darren Doogie Wolfson. We got to run. Great session
boys.
here. We'll do it
Yep,
again
we'll talk on
Thursday, dudes.
Yep.
All right,
See ya,
sounds
dudes.
good. There he is, Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd. Scoop sessions every Tuesday and Thursday with a little reckless speculation sprinkled in, too.